This video is part of the Road2 Advanced Terrain Modeling group exercise, Create Terrain by Linear Features. So this is the fourth video in the series of 4 videos from the Road2 Advanced Terrain Modeling exercise. This is the group one, as I stated before. It calls for us to open up the corridors file. I'm in that corridors file. Step 2 asks us to change the design stage to a linear features. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a linear features, or we're going to set our design stage to linear features, which is going to allow us to create a surface from that. So I'll have to go through each one of these corridors and change that design stage. And I'm looking for one called Final Linear Features. So once I change that corridor, and I'm doing the AC one first, you'll see over in the 3D view how it looks. As soon as it's done processing. Okay, so you can see the linear features in the 2D, and you can also see them in the 3D view as well. I'm going to do the same thing on this TG alignment, or corridor. I'm going to change it to the final linear features. It'll process much quicker, and then I'll do the same thing on the 2 radius returns. This is the key in creating the terrain by linear features option. Okay, so now that I've done that, you can see the difference in what it looks like when you change that design stage. On the final, it always changes our template drops, makes them a little bit closer. Okay, step 4 says let's close the default 2D view and maximize the 3D view. So I'll go ahead and close the first 1-to-1, and I'll maximize out that 2D default 3D view. In step number 5, it's asking us to go to the reference icon and turn off the 2 files that we have in there, which it looks like they are both off. Okay. Also, it's saying, if not already done, use the level manager, turn off the levels of the non-surface linear elements. And so what we're talking about is, I'll go down here to the end, and then I'm going to rotate my view dynamically. I'm going to use this point and left click and move in. But what I want to do is, it's going to be a top surface is what I want. So I don't want to create a surface containing all these different elements. So using the level display tool, we'll turn off the subsurface is what we're looking for. And you could go by the name and see that there's subsurface in here, or you can right click and do off by element. But if you turn off all the ones that say subsurface, you're going to get rid of pretty much, like I said, subsurface and not surface. Okay, it looks like all of them there. And I'll close this out. And again, I'll do a rotation and zoom out a little bit, make sure I got all my surface linear elements available to me, which it looks like it's there. I got edge of pavement, shoulders, got my ditches, got my elements of construction, all that looks good. It says place the remaining linear 3D elements into a Microstation selection set. So to do this, I'm going to go to the top view and do a fit view. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm also going to hit the F4 key to bring up my element selection tool. And I'm just going to create a window around everything. Just by left clicking and holding, dragging a window across it, let go of it. It tells me I have 34 elements in my selection set. So that was step 7. Now step 8 has us creating the surface. To do this, we'll go to our task tools. We're looking for the create from elements tool, which is the 5th one on the toolbar in the terrain modeling tool set. So we'll grab that. It's ready to go. You can see it's got on the heads up display, it's saying data point to add 33 selected elements, but let's set up the dialog first. Feature types that we're going to use is break line. We're going to use the edge method of remove slivers. Design triangles will be our feature definition. And we're going to call this one design triangles. It kept our old name from a previous video that we did. And we're going to go with design triangles from linear features. If I could spell. And I'm still messing up. Okay. And I always like to enter that in the keyboard so it takes it. So now all we have to do is just left click to add those 34 selected items. That's going to go through our prompts now. Break line. We'll left click to accept that. Left click to accept or remove slivers. And we'll let it process. And you can see that it's come out here and it's created a surface. Okay. Now, the next part of this is we're going to go out and use our element selection tool and select the level that's called modeling limits of construction. We got some bogus triangles out here and we can control them by changing a feature. So I'm going to go back to the F4 key, element selection tool. If I hit this pull down on the right side of that tool, it'll expand out. And what I'm looking for is the levels. And under levels, and sometimes you might have to change that filter in a level display to used. That's what I'm going to do. If it's none or all levels, you'll have to hunt through to find the level that you want. I'm looking for one that's called modeling limits of construction. And I see it right here. So I'm going to select it. And you can see it goes to the limits of construction. Outside edge of wherever that terrain, wherever that template has went out and sought out the ground and found it, it creates that element there. Next step is to actually change the feature type, and to do this, change that feature type, we have a tool that's in the terrain modeling tools again, and it is called the change feature type. And let me see if I can find that one. Remove features, so it's got to be right around here. Change feature type. 5th tool on the 2nd row of toolbars. I'll go ahead and select it. It's going to ask us what terrain model and what break line. Well, we have it selected, or what method to do. And we're going to change this to a boundary. Is what we're going to do. So since we have the elements in the selection set, we don't have to worry about picking the terrain model. All we have to do now is just data point to change the 6 selected elements out in a blank area. So I'll just left click. I'll accept the boundary. And you can see what it does. It goes out, places a boundary at our limits of construction, and gets rid of all those bogus triangles that we had in there. So that's a pretty slick way of doing it as well. The next step of this is, we'll go ahead and hit F4 and get out of the tool, is to open, in step number 11, to open the terrain proposed. So I'll go File. Again, it's on my quick access list. Terrain proposed. I'll select it. I will check in my changes. And when I open it, you can see that we have a terrain out here that was left over from the last video we worked through, which was the linear, which was the graphical filter chapter. So again, what we'll want to do is just select this surface and get rid of it. I like to do a file, compress, gets rid of all the steps that we took before and cleans up the file, makes it a lot less in file size. Okay, so once we've done that, that was step 12, delete all elements in the file. Step 13 says reference into corridors, 3D view. So we'll go to the reference icon. We'll do a tools, attach. What we're going to want to do is find that corridors file that we've been working with, and we're going to add that to our list and hit OK. Now, the key to this part is we want the 3D view. So we'll just change this model here from default down to default 3D. And then we'll hit OK. As you can see, now we have the model default 3D. We're good. In step number 14, it says, in the level display dialog, turn off all levels except for modeling terrain proposed and modeling triangles proposed. Okay, so we'll close this out. We'll bring up this. Looks like the corridors 2D came along. Let me look and see how that works. Let's make sure that's off. We'll turn that view off of the 2D. We just want to see the 3D. Okay, so if that happens, I noticed when I opened this up, the default was in there as well as the default 3D. I want to come into here and I want to turn off everything. And you can see the filters at none. So let's go ahead and do used. And we'll see all the used filters that are in here. Try to expand it a little bit so we can see everything. So it says turn all off, and I'm going to go ahead and do it alphabetically. So I'll do a right click, all off. But I want to see modeling terrain proposed. So I'll turn that on. And modeling triangles proposed. Okay, so now I can zoom in and I can see I've got that surface with just the triangles. Okay. So that was step 14. Step 15. In the reference dialog, select the corridors 3D reference, and we're going to merge it into master. So that's all we want to see. If we left all these elements on, all these levels on, then everything that we see will be merged into master, into this file. We only want what we see as our triangles. So we'll go back to the reference icon. We'll select that default 3D model, and you can right click on it, or you can do a tools, pull down, and merge into master, however you want to do it. We're going to go ahead and left click in a blank area. It tells us that down in the status bar, merge references, select the view for merge. So I'll left click, it'll give us an alert. We have selected one reference to merge into the current design file. Yes, that's what we want to do, so we'll say OK. And that gets us past step number 15. Step 16 says after the elements have been merged, detach both references. Well, I can see that what happens is when you do a merging of the one file, it gets placed into the DGN and the model goes away. So this one I'll just go ahead and just detach and get rid of that. It's all gone. So now our surface is actually in this DGN file. Okay, the element that has been merged is a terrain model, but does not have the correct feature definition settings to be a full civil terrain model. To verify this, select a terrain and choose properties from the heads up tool. So let's zoom in. We select a terrain. We hit this properties, and yes, you can see that there's a lot of information in here, but we're not seeing the feature definition in here anywhere. So what we need to do is apply a feature definition to it. Okay, so that was step number 17. Step number 18 says apply a feature definition to the terrain elements, and you can do that by going to the general geometry work group. So we'll go over to the tasks, general geometry, and we're looking for set feature definition. So we'll select it now. Right now we have no feature definition, and it's set to linear as default. We're working with a surface, so let's change that to surface. And let's go out and we'll hit the pull down, and we're going to change this to a terrain display of design triangles like we've been doing. And then we're going to call this design triangles from linear features. And of course I spelled wrong again. Trying to read and do things at the same time. Okay, so now it says locate the elements or reset to complete. We'll go ahead and identify our element, and then we'll reset to complete. Hit the F4 key. Now I can look at this terrain model, and you'll see now. Okay, so now that we've created the surface, you can do the same thing as we've been doing all along with the other videos, is you can actually export that as a land XML. Step number 20 has us open the corridors file, and there's a reason for it. So we're going to go over to the corridors file. We'll save our changes to this. We'll check it in. And we're in the 3D file at the moment. So what we want to do is delete the terrain model that was created from the linear elements. Easy enough to do. We'll just go over it. The delete key, identify it, and it's gone. So I'll open up window 1. I'll do a window tile, and I'll have my window 1 default and my 3D window out there for me to see. You could also hit the F6 key to bring both the 2D and 3D view back. So it's a lot of ways of doing different things. And that concludes the video for advanced terrain modeling using linear features.